I just did my first ever interview with a Hollywood movie director. His name is Daniel Goldhaber, and he just came off his directorial debut to create a social commentary action thriller called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. And I got the chance to talk with Daniel and discuss all of the nitty-gritty details of the filmmaking process. And this is how it went. Okay, Daniel, I got a couple of questions. I'm super excited. I just saw the movie and I loved it. It was beautiful. But I wanted to ask you a couple questions. So narratively, right, How to Blow Up a Pipeline differs from projects like Cam, specifically because it carries the same intensity when it comes to the stakes for the characters, but obviously it's a different style of storytelling. So were there any story elements that you planned to go with initially, but when you were actually making the movie, you were like, this is kind of too crazy to pull off?
No, I mean, like, I think from the beginning, part of the inspiration for this was, I think, you know, blowing up a pipeline is not the hardest thing in the world. And so it was something that we felt like we could tackle, like, this really big question of, you know, how can we fight climate change, but in a way that was like very immediate. And that was also kind of what made the movie so provocative, I think, was that, like, you know, obviously it's not easy, but it's something that, you know, 8 people can get together and just do. So on that level, I think, you know, we always knew that the movie was pretty achievable, but it was still like every inch of making it was really challenging because we were actually out in the desert, in the snow, you know, shooting on film, very, very, very limited budget and trying to make it all work. So, you know, it was never easy, but we always kind of knew we could get it done.
That makes sense. And that transitioned me perfectly to the next question, because I saw that, like, most of this film was shot on site, and it seemed like the Texas desert. I don't know if it was in another desert, but it seems like the Texas desert.
New Mexico. So,
okay,
you know, close enough.
Okay, yeah. So I was like, what was the biggest challenge in dealing with the elements? Was it with the film, like, or the cameras kind of like overheating? What was the biggest challenge when you consider, like, all the big scale set pieces that had to be made at the ending of the film?
Yeah, I mean, I'd actually say it was the North Dakota section.
Okay.
You know, there's a flashback that takes place in Parshall, North Dakota, and that was kind of a location that Forrest Goodluck, the actor who plays Michael, brought to the table. He was like, we got to go out there. There's these, like, crazy flame spires. You know, they're really gonna cement the, like, apocalyptic nature of what's happening in this film, and it's where he's from, it's where his family's from. So we, like, literally were shooting in his uncle's house, but we were out in the middle of nowhere, you know, an hour-and-a-half drive away from the nearest airport, in the middle of these, like, totally desolate blizzards, -50 below zero with the wind chill, trying to shoot a movie. And, you know, half our crew got stuck in a weather delay. That was harrowing, truly a harrowing experience. We could not have been happier to leave.
And have the final product, at least.
yeah. Well, it was more just, like, happier to, like, have gotten it all, you know, and it was a real challenge.
Another thing that stuck out to me is I love the Matryoshka doll style of storytelling, where you're, like, peeling off the layers on the backstories of the characters to get the full picture. So do you think, I know this is based on a book, so do you think there's space to work with Andreas to, like, maybe develop a sequel with a crew in a completely different side of the world to, like, explore how those ideals from the original crew would affect somebody in, I don't know, like India, Brazil, somewhere else?
It's a great idea. I mean, yeah, I think the thing about the book is there's actually not a story in the book. It's just theory. The book's just a manifesto, you know, calling for this kind of action. So I actually no one's actually raised that idea before. That idea of you know, doing a story that takes place that takes this idea and transplants it to other countries and other cultures, I think is a really great one, because I definitely think this is a battle that is international and that is also universal, and I love that idea. I'll text him about it and see what he thinks.
Hey, as long as I get to interview both of you when that happens, I'm happy.
Perfect.
Okay, I really wanted to ask you this. Okay, I feel like every filmmaker has 2 movies that they'll never forget, right? The first one that told them, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And the second one that you're like, I don't know if I can do that, homie. Like, I don't know if I can see this and be like, this is kind of like a stroke of genius. Which were your two movies?
My first is definitely The City of Lost Children by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Like, it's funny because, like, you know, something like Pipeline, that could not be more the opposite. But in my, like, heart of hearts, like, cyberpunk, steampunk, that's like my white whale, you know, and that's like, I love that kind of surreal kind of thing. That's really my bag. And I definitely would say the kind of like how the movie for me is probably Mad Max Fury Road. That movie is you know, I think Steven Soderbergh has a great quote about it where he says, you know, he has no idea how they're not still shooting the movie and how everybody didn't die doing it, and it's true, you know. And that movie's really magnificent. I can't wait for the follow-up.
Yeah, I feel that. I kind of felt that way with like Dune. I was like, yo, this is crazy. I couldn't read the whole book, so I was like, to see it visually makes the most sense. But I appreciate your insight. Okay, so as a fellow Letterboxd enthusiast myself,
yes,
I can see reviews and know when people are just trying to be cynical for cynical's sake, or just trying to use, for example, humor and satire to give constructive criticism. Have you ever had like a director note or a review that you were like, damn, I wish I had done it that way? That actually makes sense for me to have done it that way?
All the time. I mean, I think the thing is with this movie in particular, like, it was never going to be a perfect film. That wasn't the goal. Like, it's a movie that is doing a very particular thing, and I hope it succeeds at that. But there's definitely a lot of places where I wish the movie were better. I wish that, you know, I wish that we had more moments of kind of, you know, alone with the characters, you know. But I think that ultimately, you know, I love reading responses and reviews, both good and bad, especially with this film, because, you know, the goal is to get people talking and thinking. And I think that all of those kinds of criticisms are really productive. And they definitely make me a better filmmaker, you know. Like, I thrive on feedback as just a person. And so I think that, you know, definitely sometimes people are mean. And but it can be kind of easy to ignore that and then to try to take the constructive criticism to heart and try to do better next time.
That's awesome. And going off that same vein, this one's a little bit more simpler, but I feel like every director has their own perspective on this. What do you think makes a great film?
I think that for me, the like first thing is like, is the movie doing what it's saying it's doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like what does the movie think it is? And is it at the very least abiding by that? And I think that that's something that a lot of movies don't totally live up to. That's hard enough on its own. But then for me, it's like, I want something that totally transports and absorbs me. And that can be something like Fury Road. And to some extent, I think that that's the kind of ineffability of cinema, is capturing someone's attention and their imagination and their heart for 2 hours. Like, that's really hard, but that also can happen when I think you're really honest and you embrace the like beauty of the world.
If you could remake any movie and then change its genre, which one would it be?
Remake any movie and change its genre?
Because I'd like to get your opinions on mine.
What's yours?
Remake The Terminator as a rom-com, where like the Terminator is like the Iron Giant just failing miserably.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, I'm gonna say this is not quite that, but like I think the very serious, like committed, grounded version of Star Wars. Like, you take the same story, but you kind of you are like relentless with how bleak that story actually is. Yeah, like Chris Nolan directing Star Wars would be like my jam.
Oh, that would be so cool. Another one. I don't know if we can cover the whole thing, but like, how much emphasis do you think sound plays in making a movie great?
50%. It's sight and sound. They're equally as important. You know, and I think that one of the best pieces of advice I ever got as a filmmaker was from Leos Carax. I don't know if and he basically like he saw my thesis film in college, and he turned it off after 8 minutes. And he looked at me and he said, the problem with your movie is the picture and the sound and the music are doing the same thing. This is very boring. The sound always has to go against the picture. It always conflicts with the picture. And in that conflict, that's cinema. And I always think about that.
Oh, okay. Time's up. But thank you so much for the time. I wish we could like go on this for hours, but thank you very much.
I agree.
Man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. Hopefully we'll talk again soon.
That was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. I am a huge film nerd, so to actually get the chance to talk to somebody that is this passionate about the filmmaking process and they're making their dreams come true was surreal. Big thank you to Daniel for taking the time to answer my questions. I feel like we could have done that for hours. And also big thank you to Neon Studios for giving me the opportunity to talk to him. Let me know your thoughts on the interview, and if you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought about that in the comments down below.